What is up, guys? As you can see by the sign here, we are here for something very important. This is the new Alpinestars Supertech R10 full face street helmet. With me is the Alpinestars communication specialist, Heath Kofran. And Heath, we're gonna go over this helmet a little bit because you've been really close to this thing over the years and really learning the ins and outs of this to help spread the word on it, the message, right? And now we've got the opportunity to check it out for the first time today. I wanna start by let's talk a little bit about who this helmet is for.
Sure, so who this helmet is for. I mean, it's developed in MotoGP. You know, Andrea Dovizioso is here today with us.
Yeah.
He was the foundational development rider. So ultimately, the foundation for this helmet is built on racing. And so the purpose and the focus of this to make the best helmet we could possibly make for the highest levels in motorcycle racing.
And it's something that Alpinestars is so proud of, right? Is the protection element and giving its riders and the consumers, right, the ultimate protection. But there are other things to this helmet. There's main focus areas, right?
Number one is paramount for this company. It has to protect the head because the end result, that's the one thing you want to make sure happens the most. If a rider hits his head, is this designed to do the job? Like, that's number one, protection.
And in addition to that, you've got about another 4 key areas, right?
Yep.
And I might miss one of these, and that's why you got here, right? So we've got aerodynamics, ventilation, airflow, is that?
Airflow,
ventilation. Okay, can you go through a little bit of those 5 and the areas of the helmet that are designed to support those main goals?
Yeah, and the last one is weight.
Weight,
Right?
yes.
You
just
think
big.
about riders. Riders like.
I wish everyone could feel it here because it is so lightweight, it's incredible. But yeah, Heath, go ahead and talk about these areas.
Those are the key points, starting with aerodynamics. I mean, I could literally talk for an hour about aerodynamics. There's a lot of focuses and features within this helmet, aerodynamics. Number one that you see from this helmet that you have not seen anywhere. This is the side winglet of the helmet, which allows for stability. So airflow, ventilation, we're talking about aerodynamics right here. This is pure stability. Now, you think about on the track here today, how often were you in the tuck position versus off the bike?
Now I'm going to cheat here because I think you did mention this earlier in the presentation. So it's 80%, right? Is what
Roughly.
The numbers you guys are looking at?
It depends on the track, but the focus here as far as aerodynamics go is mitigation of forces of air to the rider. And so off the bike or in the tuck position. Because you think about it, you're off the bike so much of the time. So a lot of the focus and then aerodynamics within this helmet is off the bike. Because off the bike, a lot of speed is carried. Focusing through a turn is crucial in having less weight, less wind force on the neck. So a lot of the aerodynamics tie into stability. Off the bike is a key focus, and of course, in the tuck position.
And you mentioned something earlier in the presentation which I thought was cool. It's something along the lines of taking that pressure off the rider's neck and just making it easier for them to ride, right?
Yes,
Focus on the actual riding part.
Yes, absolutely. So within aerodynamics, the number one thing with that is to mitigate lift, right? You're coming through, popping your head up. A lot of airflow on a traditional helmet might cause lift, right? So it's more strain. The rider has to use more neck force to bring his head back down, come back into the turn, because when you're on a bike, you're up, you're down, you're left, you're right, you're moving all around. And that wind flow is coming from all directions. So no matter what the position the head is, we wanted to add the aerodynamics in such a sense where it doesn't add lift, but it keeps it stable. Because stability is less stress on the neck.
Okay.
And so the end result of that, more performance for the rider. Less effort, extra effort he has to put in to do the race that he needs to do or to enjoy a track day.
Yeah, right,
Less stress,
it's not just even about racing.
You're not as tired.
Right.
So another thing with aerodynamics is wind resistance. So looking at the suit in connection with the helmet. Now we have full control. We can control the connection between the back. This is the race fairing, right? There's a race fairing, there's a road fairing. So the race fairing is the ultimate dynamics. It is then designed to connect with the suit. As you see in MotoGP, those suits are designed specifically for this.
Yep.
So in the future, suits will also be exactly proportioned to match this rear spoiler.
I've seen some pictures, and hopefully we can show you guys this,
Yeah, we
but
can show
the
that.
MotoGP riders in the full tuck position where the helmet finishes it and flows right into the hump. So it's really not only just a clean look, but it's obviously the performance of that. And it's you being able to control airflow all the way through from the Alpinestars helmet through to the suit.
And think about this, this aerodynamics portion of the helmet, there's a lot to talk about. But just look at MotoGP, for example, right?
Yeah. Winglets.
How has MotoGP changed over the years? Winglets, even on the tail section. And so why are they doing aerodynamics on the tail, right?
Yeah, I'm going to let you finish that because I think you've got more information.
It's an advantage, right? The riders and teams want an advantage. I want as much less airflow to disturb my bike's speed.
Yeah.
So what the team did, think about what could we do to add even more of an advantage with the rider, right? Controlling aerodynamics is what we knew could achieve that. And by doing that, the team developed these side winglets to help an advantage, one less bit of stress on that rider.
And I think one of the important things to mention, I think a lot of people are going to be curious about, in the case of an incident, how these are designed to pop off. And in the case of the spoiler itself, you can change that out, right? So can you explain the system a little bit on that?
So for those of you that understand our motocross helmet, the SM10, so it's a patented design. In the event of an incident or a crash, right, you want to keep surfaces as smooth as possible to mitigate any rotational force energy being transferred to the neck and ultimately with the head for concussions. So the rear spoiler, we'll turn this just quickly here to the side. This rear spoiler, in the event of an incident, can pop off, right, to make it as smooth as possible. Also, the helmet can have a race spoiler or it can also have a road spoiler. Maybe someone on the road doesn't want the full race spoiler, so you can pop off these sides and put on the shorter road spoiler if the rider would like to do that. As far as the side winglets, in the event of a crash, these are designed to pop off. Again, to allow as much smooth surfaces to be in contact with the asphalt or whatever surface it is, just to keep those rotational forces as mitigated as possible to keep control to the overall safety of the rider in the event of a crash.
So ventilation is another big thing on this helmet, right?
Oh,
and
huge.
there are intake and exhaust ports almost everywhere.
Yes.
One of the things we talked about earlier, I haven't seen so much ventilation ports on the chin bar, which is very interesting. Can you go through a little bit on some of the main features there and what the goals are? Because I think Alpinestars has done some unique things with this, right?
And so through the process of the Ys within this helmet, making sure there was constant airflow, not only to the visor, but as a rider breathes, right? Hot air. Riders in racing scenarios, a lot of breathing, a lot of controlled breathing, that's a lot of hot air. Where does that hot air go? So the exhaust ports here you see on the front are angled out. So the angle within these exhaust ports right here at the mouth. So what that does, as the rider is breathing through the race, through the helmet, that air gets to come out and has a place to escape to. While here in the front, there's air coming in through this vent, the front vent, all goes through the shield and up. Through the top, this vent here, by opening it all the way, the air here comes down the visor, then you have air coming up the visor. So there's a rotation of air, always keeping it clear, especially in those rainy and humid conditions, like we saw in Argentina in MotoGP, because the helmet was tested in those scenarios to offer clarity in the craziest of rain or the colder mornings where you're out testing, you don't want it to fog up, you can control how that air flows through, not only here, but also here through the top and out the back, and exits out through the back here.
And then you've got some ventilation in the cheek pads themselves, correct?
Yeah, I mean, just everything is designed to have ventilation. And you said, Heath, I came off the track and like, it's not sweaty. He's like, how?
No, I'm both out of shape and it is hot here today, so I was incredibly sweaty.
Yeah.
And really impressed with how it worked in that regard.
So a key to mitigating a sweaty helmet, right, is allowing that moisture to one, evaporate. How does moisture evaporate? It's through airflow.
Yep.
So if you have a stale helmet on the inside, that causes you to sweat more, and then it will absorb in the material more. But because of the airflow and ventilation, it's not only helping you, but also helping the helmet.
Somewhat related to the airflow, I know you've mentioned it's a big thing for you guys is controlling the air, and a really cool little detail is these, let's say, turbulators.
Yes,
you call them,
exactly.
right
Good
here
job,
on the on the screen itself.
Yeah.
And that actually, what you guys have mentioned is that keeps the helmet quiet, right?
Yes.
Which is very interesting.
Yes. Where the visor comes into the side of the helmet, it sticks out, it protrudes. Also, on the inside of this area is your ear. So you're coming to where a lot of wind is coming off a protruding piece within the system, but also this needs to open and close. So, right, you need to have a connecting point. So by adding these turbulators, what it does is it calms the wind around your ear to not make it cause whistling. And the whistling is ultimately what causes noise within the helmet. And this is a prime area of where that happens.
Got it, interesting.
So every single visor that comes with the helmet will have this, regardless of clear, regardless of smoke, mid-smoke, photochromatic, or also mirrored. Every single shield will have the turbulators to help keep the helmet quiet.
And I'm cheating here a little bit, but you did mention that some of that is from Formula One, right? The Alpinestars looking into that space.
Our team always looks outside of what's happening to see what's also being utilized in motorsports for, such as in F1. They use a lot of different tools to help flow air, control the air, and that's another area, just looking outside of the norm, how we can solve a solution that we know riders need. Because you think about it, guys ask, how quiet is this race helmet? You're like, it's a race helmet. Like, well, our team wanted to make sure we had a great answer for that, and that answer was the turbulator design.
Got it. Weight is a very big thing. Again, we mentioned we wish you guys could pick this thing up because it is incredibly light. I think you have some weights, but more importantly, talking a little bit about the technologies that you've used to enable to keep it so light. A little bit in the shell and also the EPS liners, correct?
Yeah, so the EPS liner has a special coating that's been polished, and it's kind of hard to see, but as I reach my hand in here and talk, you can see my hand moving around. So there's an anti-rotational slip system that basically allows the helmet to move in the event of a crash, oblique, or direct impact, just to mitigate the rider's head from being in a stable position. As the helmet turns, you want the helmet to turn, not the head. Right. And so what this system does by having the EPS have a polished and really smooth surface in connection with the A-head and the crown and the side fitment, it allows for that rotational to be mitigated, but also by using this system, it lessens weight.
Got it.
Because you're not adding, more features to make it thicker.
Right.
By adding depth, right? You're adding weight.
Right.
You're adding volume. That lessens aerodynamics. And so this system is designed to be very minimal, but also highly effective. And so the team really went to town in engineering something that was as lightweight as possible, but still as effective as it could possibly be.
So then another big part of that is with this carbon shell, right? And that helps with the weight, but there's some other stuff to that, right? What's Alpinestars looking at with the shell?
Obviously, with carbon, you want to use a high-density carbon that's a great carbon, right? There's some companies that will use a carbon that's maybe not the best quality, but this is high-density, high-quality carbon to take those force impacts in a light material that disperses that through multiple areas within the helmet. And by having the different layers, it allows each of those impacts to be spread over a larger area. And then there's an epoxy resin that separates each individual layer, which allows it to be thin, which allows less weight. So every single layer has a form and a function. One of them is puncture. So this is FIM, DOT, and ECE homologated, and a lot of that shell construction has to do with reaching that homologation.
Got it. So, actually, I did want to mention, you said something in the presentation which I thought was cool, and an interesting thing that Alpinestars has to think about, any gear company really, when you're creating a product, is the what ifs. You never know what's going to happen in an accident, right? And especially you reference GP, right? In Super Bowl, when we see some crazy crashes in GP racing, and you guys are providing these helmets to GP riders, you don't know what's going to happen. So it's just taking all those considerations, right? And developing a helmet that's going to protect.
Yeah,
regardless.
so there's like a regulation of where a helmet needs to be safe from impacts, both linear and oblique. So it's a 22 ECE, has a certain standard. So we're far below what those standards are, just like you said. There's always the what if. So we don't build a helmet to meet a standard, we build a helmet to meet where we feel the helmet is safe. And so we have an internal testing house inside at Alpinestars where we can test all of this in real time on our own before it even goes to the homologation process. We've already done the testing on our own. We know what it's capable of doing.
A couple other cool little features to wrap this up here. A couple that I had noticed and we talked about, and maybe you can just add a little bit to that. Well, the one thing is you can customize the fit a little bit with what Alpinestars call their A-frame. A-head system.
Yeah,
sorry, I messed that one up.
system.
And that comes from the motocross helmet, but you've got essentially, is it 3 positions,
So
let's
it's
say?
12 points of customization within the helmet. So there's 4 points, and within those 4 points, there's 3 different levels of connection.
Okay.
And so what this does, just as you experienced, say we have 57 degrees of viewing port, right? So within that 57 degrees, like a standard helmet, like it's in this position. But say like today, like, hey, I need more visibility looking through these turns. With the A head, you could take the whole helmet and tilt it up. Just within a minute and a half. You reach in, pop those 4 connection points to a different position, causing the helmet to be rotated back or down. But you could also have the helmet fit higher on your head or lower on your head, depending on where you have pressure points. Some riders today were like, oh, I'm having a little bit of a pressure point. So like, cool, snap that A head up one more, and they're like, oh, it's great, it's fine. So it just allows for a lot of customization. But also think too, so today we're on the track, right? But later, we're gonna be riding these on the street. So what we can do, we can take that A head fitment system and rotate it back up. Because when you're on the bike more upright, right, you're looking like this. We're on the track, you're looking like this.
Right.
So we're gonna switch this A head, boom, we're on the street.
Yeah.
But also guys might like that on the track too. Like it's rider preference, and we wanted an ease of use for customization.
You got some versatility built in.
Yeah, and it's a patented design that we used in the SM10 in motocross that's been highly successful there, and we wanted to bring that development and innovation into this helmet.
Right. That's awesome. The other thing that I think is really cool that you guys have, again, borrowing from the motocross side, is the kind of shape of the shell, the lower structure of the helmet.
collarbone relief.
Okay, right.
So in analyzing crashes, even in our SM10 motocross helmet, what tends to happen, you have a rider that hits his head, it comes down right here, and what's right there? Your collarbone. Collarbone is a very sensitive bone. So what we did is we made sure there was a small relief, just this much of a relief with a softer material. So if there was to be a side impact on the rider with the collarbone and the helmet, you have a soft material that allows for less of a harsher impact. So let's just say this carbon went all the way down. So you're having carbon fiber smacking your collarbone in the event of a crash. So this helps mitigate collarbone injury, but also it makes it lighter.
Right.
Because this area makes it lighter, a little bit here, just a little bit here, right? One of the big 5 things that we talked about was weight. How do we achieve this to be as light as possible, but still as protective as we possibly could?
The visor itself. You want to talk a little bit about how the visor pops?
I'm hinting.
This is a big thing for them because, and Heath, we've talked about this before. We stood in front of the camera here. This is a big thing for you guys because it is a race helmet, and this is a safety feature a little bit that you guys are building into the visor itself. You said you don't want it to come up.
Right, because when the team goes to develop something, right, we talked about this was about 5 years of development, and what we do within that development phase is analyze crashes. So when riders crash, what happens? We've seen riders crash visors pop off, gravel in the face.
Yeah.
There was a really big example of that with Marc Marquez.
Right.
He had gravel in his
It's
face,
not-
and it was not very good for him. So we wanted to design something to help mitigate that chance of a visor popping off.
Yeah.
So what the team came up with, number one, how you open the helmet. There's a locking mechanism that locks the visor into place. When riders crash, through the analysis, riders crash with their heads moving this way, forward, sliding sideways. Rarely will you ever see a rider slide backwards. So by having the locking mechanism come up, no matter how the rider crashes or if there is an incident sliding forward, it stays locked down in position. Also for that, it keeps the helmet smooth, right? We talked about oblique impacts. By having a visor pop up and be exposed, you have sharp edges that could potentially whip the rider's neck back in the event of a crash. So, metal connecting points here, metal connecting points here, metal connecting points on the visor. All areas that are crucial to a strong closure are metal, because we felt that was the safest way to keep it down, and then with the locked position, it holds that visor into place.
Right. So much technology and innovations going
Yes,
into this helmet. I
absolutely.
mean, it's clear that you guys have done your homework, right, and tried to bring
yeah.
as much as you can into the product.
And that's why we went through so many intricate details within this helmet, looking at what does the racer need to do what he does best.
Yeah.
And from an analysis of crashes, making it safe, making it light, like we really looked this over with a microscope to make sure everything was thought about to give the ultimate in performance where you forget you're wearing anything at all on your head.
Yeah.
But when you need it the most, like it's there for you to do
Yeah.
exactly what it's designed to do.
Awesome. Well, Heath, thank you so much for
Yes.
the thorough overview of
Yeah,
the helmet.
it's
It's
my pleasure.
really exciting to see all the technology in it. Guys, we hope you enjoyed checking out the R10. We're gonna have more on this helmet over the next weeks and months, getting to spend a lot of time in it. Look for more content. In the meantime, if you like what we are doing with the videos here, be sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. We'll try to get you as many answers as possible.
Yep.
Get all your questions answered. And thanks again, guys. We'll see you in the next one.